Yeah, there's a right click, and then there's options. View in.
Let's see. What's that? Oh, show view options.
No. I think that's it. Quick actions. Maybe some quick actions.
You can see that. No, I looked at that a second ago.
Nope, that's not it.
Did this last time. I think Grace.
So it's right click. Is it maybe it's under open with? Nope. It was right there. What's your so when you double click in which program does that open it up? It's like a viewer, right? Or you have multiple types of items there too.
No, these are all just here.
Didn't you have to select them all? Yeah, it was like
He's got them all selected.
it's like Command A, right click something.
Thank you.
How about when that open shift doesn't show right there?
What do you see over there? It did something
It's
with
not
it.
showing the things here. Oh, maybe because oh no, you're in.
There's a way to do this. That was one of the things we heard last time, was that just the lighting, people on Facebook couldn't see it.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to see that at all.
Do you guys both want to turn the little thing so the lines go upward? And then we can turn those lights off.
We literally kicked you off this page when we were on here first.
I'm waiting for some minutes.
Are you working?
Light off.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah, you want us flatters.
So it's like you
And Jeff, there's a knob right there for the lights.
Okay.
You want to turn those off because they're reflecting in the TV. Yeah.
Sure.
And Keanu, you be our light person. You want to flip that off? Thank you.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, who wants a blanket? Oh, no.
Remember how you said you didn't want to hear snores?
Well, let's pray. We'll have a little bit of worship, and then we'll get into it. Father, thank you for bringing us here this afternoon, Lord, to study your word some more. Lord, to study you some more in the land of Israel and all the different aspects of going there and learning about the lay of the land and the things that occurred there. And Lord, I pray you would kind of keep us awake. It's nap time, Lord, and help us to rest in you, but that our minds and our eyes will be open. And inhabit the praises of your people, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord.
separate. Even if I ran away, your love never fails. I know I'll still make mistakes, but you have new mercy for me every day. Your love never fails. You stay the same. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. Maybe pain in the night, but joy comes with the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Never fails. Your love never fails. Never fails. When you're strong, when you're strong and the water's deep, I'm not alone here when you turn the sea. Your love never fails. Chasm was far too wide. I never thought I'd reach the other side. Your love never fails. You stay the same. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. Maybe pain in the night, joy comes with the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Never fails. Your love never fails. Never fails. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. Maybe pain in the night, but joy comes with the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Never fails. Your love never fails. Never fails. 'Cause you make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. overwhelmed, I will look to you alone. God my rock, God my rock, God my rock. You will stand when others fall. You are faithful through it all. God my rock, God my rock, God my rock. In the blessing, in the pain, through it all you never fail me. You are the strength of my heart. You are the strength of my heart. I can rely on you. I can rely on you. When my heart is overwhelmed, when my heart is overwhelmed, I will look to you alone. God my rock, God my rock, God my rock. You will stand when others fall. You are faithful through it all. God my rock, God my rock, God my rock. In the blessing, in the pain, through it all you never fail me. You are the strength of my heart. You are the strength of my heart. I can rely on you. I can rely on you. You are the joy of my life. You are the joy of my life. You are my song in the night. There is no one as true. Jesus, I trust in you. When I struggle to believe, you have not let go of me. God my rock, God my rock, God my rock. Carry through the darkest storms, you have held me in your arms. God my rock, God my rock, God my rock. In the blessing, in the pain, through it all you never fail me. You are the strength of my heart. You are the strength of my heart. I can rely on you. I can rely on you. You are the joy. You are the joy of my life. You are my song in the night. There is no one as true. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. Oh, Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. You are the strength. You are the strength of my heart. You are the strength of my heart. I can rely on you. I can rely on you. You are the joy. You are the joy of my life. You are my song in the night. There is no one as true. Jesus, I trust in you. You are the joy of my life. You are the joy of my life. You are my song in the night. There is no one as true. Jesus, I trust in you. When my heart is overwhelmed, when my heart is overwhelmed, I will look to you alone. God my rock, God my rock, God my rock.
Gracious Father, we thank you that you are the rock of our lives, Lord, the foundation of everything that we are. And Lord, we ask that you would guide us even this afternoon, Lord, as we study your word, Lord, as we look over maps and look at pictures and these different things, Lord, that you would just help us to be excited, Lord, about you and about learning more about you in the land of Israel. We love you, Lord, and we thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen. Sweetheart, there's a pizza there for you, gluten-free pizza. That's It's missing several key ingredients, but it's there for you.
Hey, Grace, it says Laura on it.
Okay.
Well, last week, and it's kind of funny, kind of developing my mind, kind of how to approach this a little bit. I was hoping to, show you some videos and stuff of Pastor Chuck and REA, and trying to combine all that with, the pictures and maps and all that. What I think we're going to do is, last week we went through day one of the tour, kind of just worked our way through all the different locations and stuff. And I'm going to kind of continue with that, just to kind of roll through the days. And then when we get done with that, the next phase is we'll get some of the videos out and maybe do it that way. Because it's hard to break it up, especially when you start doing questions and different things. But I want to talk about maps for a second. I've shown you guys all the bigger map. Deb and I were both looking on the internet at different times, and we actually found where you can get this map if you want it. It's $20 at cartajerusalem.com. And you have to fish around their website a little bit, a lot actually, because there's other. What's that?
C-A-R-T-A.
Yeah, just like that.
When that folds up, what's the front of it look like?
It doesn't fold up. This comes in a roll. There's another map that's the exact same map, but on a smaller scale, that comes folded up, and that's what this map is. So this one, when you get it all done, I mean, I got a brand new one at home. I just kind of like waiting to frame it and break it out. But like I said, it's not quite 5 feet tall. But it's the whole map, and it's bigger, so it's easier to see the sites and all this stuff, And that's why I use it for when I study, and when I travel, I still carry it around. That's why it's so beat up and everything. But this other map that's on the table here is the exact same map, but it comes in a folded up brochure like this, and it's got half on one side and then the other half on the other side. And it folds up to the footprint of half of this thing. And I won't fold it up right now. But anyway, it's the same exact map. It's just it's a little smaller, so you have to kind of probably look a little, bring your reading glasses or a microscope or something.
So don't get the one that says Jerusalem, get the one that says Israel.
Well, there's a couple. Kind of pull this up the way it's supposed to go and see if it looks any better to anybody. There. And it folds up like that. And, so it's really easy to put in your backpack and stuff. It's bigger to manage than the one I've got, actually. And in fact, I'm going to try and start using this when I go on tour. But I think it's like, this map's like $15 on the cartajerusalem.com. And anyway, I'll pass this around if you guys want to look at it, or I can leave it on the table. It's a map. You guys will figure that out. And then the other thing, this is for when we're traveling outside of Jerusalem, actually, because you'll see as we get going, we're down in the Dead Sea, or up in the Galilee and stuff, and all the places in between when we're riding on the bus, as we're talking about the different places we're going, if you've got your map with you, you can kind of look and kind of orient yourself, and it kind of works out pretty cool that way. I've got a couple different maps of the Old City of Jerusalem. One is by Carta. The other one is by somebody else, I forget who, but it folds up the same way. This map I find particularly helpful because we're going to be in Jerusalem for a third of our trip. Spend the first 5 or 6 days almost in Jerusalem. Then we're going to go down to the Dead Sea, and we'll be in Gedi, be in Masada, and be in the Dead Sea, by the Dead Sea itself. And so lots of stuff in between. And so having that map will help you there. But this is the map where we spend most of our time, the first almost week of our trip. And so having this and being able to orient yourself will be very, very handy. And we'll probably be breaking one of these out, then huddling around the map. Here's where we are, here's what we're looking at. And then you change it from the different perspectives. One time you're looking at the Mount of Olives, you're looking at towards the west, towards the Old City and all that stuff. Then we'll be in the Old City looking east, and then you'll see it again another way. And so I just think maps are super helpful, and at some point you can it helps you to learn more of the geography and everything. And then this other map is just another version, another map company that makes the same basic thing, but they made this kind of a 3D looking, I like more the chart type, but anyway, this you can order all these things online. I mean, you can wait to get them in Israel if you want, but you'll pay more for them there, and you won't know if you're getting taken or not because they'll be in shekels. You know, all that stuff's available online. So if you want to start kind of blowing it up on your geography or whatever, at some point I'd like to kind of make one out of a sheet or something. We can all play with that. But we talked a lot. I'm trying to think. Jeff and Shelley, you weren't here for a couple of these, but I don't know if you caught on the thing we talked about. Taking notes. As I show you this first picture, actually last week we're on the Mount of Olives, and is that you, John?
Yeah, it's Deb. She disconnected, and now you can connect.
Okay. I gotta figure out how to keep what we got going here. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember what I'm supposed to do.
Oh, God.
These are all stuff. These are all pictures we saw last week that we're not going to go over again. But we hit the Mount of Olives, and a really good perspective from there. We hit the Old City, walking through there, the Zion Gate. We looked at David's Palace and Hezekiah's Tunnel, the old synagogue in the old downtown area, and then we went to the upper room. I think we saw that, and I forget where we kind of left off exactly, but I'll show you Hezekiah's Tunnel just because if you probably want to see that. All right, this is the outside of David's Palace, and some of you guys remember that. And those are storage areas and stuff. This is all stuff they excavated. There's an area outside, but then you go back inside to the water system. This is Warren Shaft. That's a Warren Shaft right there. That's what Joab climbed up. David said, whoever got in the city through the shaft, he would be the man, he'd be the general. And so Joab climbed up this shaft, which is pretty tall. And but anyway, that leads to the spring of Gihon. And that is Hezekiah's Tunnel right there. You can see the water's about calf high or so. And it's fairly wide at that point. I mean, you can walk through, it's a little bit broader than my shoulders. And it's probably like 6 or 7, maybe 8 feet tall. And trying to figure out, but that's a good shot of it.
So don't go in there if you're claustrophobic.
What's that?
Probably don't go in there if you're claustrophobic.
You know, it's the only time it gets kind of iffy is when the line gets bunched up. Is Chris still here?
No. Oh, no, she's not.
She's missing that part. But it's actually pretty tall for the most part, and there's really good airflow because it's open on both ends, and so there's lots of airflow. Plus, you got Warren Shaft that hits it, so it doesn't feel claustrophobic. I mean, I don't really like tight spaces, but I find myself in them all the time, and so and the only time it got kind of a little difficult was when somebody up front stopped, everybody kind of bunched up, and I had a big guy that filled up the whole thing in front of me, and then a bunch of kids splashing behind me, so school kids. But as you go through the tunnel, it's really actually I thought it was a very pleasant experience because it's cool enough when it's hot outside. It's nice to be in there, and That's Fred. He filled the whole thing up. He's going sideways because he can't.
He's a very big guy.
Yeah, he's 6'4", about 325, and moving slow.
Yeah.
But so nobody here will have a problem. This is where you come out, and this is the pool salon, and you come out in this gated area, you walk up the stairs and stuff. Then the next picture is looking back. Well, yeah, looking back. These are all the school kids that were behind us, and when we go, we're going to be wearing hopefully like Tevas. You bring pants with the legs up off, and we'll have a backpack with you so you can throw your junk in the backpack, and a headlamp or a flashlight or something like
Can you
that.
talk about where you get those pants?
You can get them all kinds of places. Eddie Bauer has them. That's where I got mine.
But they're seasonal at Eddie Bauer or Land's End.
Yeah,
But just Googled them, and
I got an expiry tomorrow.
They're called zip-off?
The zip off legs. Like
I
cargo
mean,
pants.
they're called zip-offs?
no, they're not. They're called
Convertibles?
convertible pants or something like that.
But they're really handy because you go from places like this where you want to take off. And you know what? Honestly, all these school kids are walking through with their jeans and their shoes, all that kind of junk.
One guy's pulling up his legs.
Yeah, or putting it back down at that point.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, anyway, let's see where we're going here. That's looking back into it from up high, and then we'll go from Hezekiah's tunnel to the dung gate in a minute. But that's the pool salon still, and you'll notice that as I'm taking some of these pictures, I'm taking pictures of my notebook, so I carry that with me so I can kind of chronicle the pictures a little easier and remember what the pictures are of. And this is obviously the old city on the outside. Now we get to day 2, and for me, and for us, as it's coming up, we're actually taking the same basic tour, but as we're driving, you can see you can't really see too well, but it's the Garden Tomb in the distance there, and the old city walls, and we're going to get to the Rabbi Tunnel here in just a minute. But these are just around the perimeter of the city, the old city, and I think that's at Damascus Gate. Not sure. And then we're in this Kidron Valley now, looking up those golden spires. That's St. Mary's Greek Orthodox Church. In the upper part of the picture, to the right, see there's those telephone poles up there and stuff, and there's some walls, and then there's.
You need a pointer.
Yeah, I meant to bring one. But we're going to be up here for a big part of our tour, and looking down on all this stuff. Then the bus is going to drop us off. We're going to walk down to it, and then he'll pick us up, take us up to the old city gates and stuff. And so there's a lot of cool things that are coming up, but it's basically quarry and the water aqueduct and cistern, the Antonia Fortress, and it'll end up on the Via Dolorosa. And so this is the courtyard area, excavations around the old city walls, and we'll go through those pretty extensively. The top of the walls up there, that's part of the Rampart Walk, and we're going to walk along up there and do a tour where you see the whole city basically. And these areas down here, mostly ritual baths and places where the Jews cleanse themselves prior to going into the temple area, and so they're called mikvahs. And this is obviously the western wall here. And in
They
a
don't
minute,
still use those baths, do they?
no, they don't. The idea was it was a ritual bath, so they had to be running water because stagnant water is unclean, and so they had to just wash off the general filth. That wasn't like a real scrub down or anything. But this is what you know as the western wall. There's a fence over here you can't see underneath that walkway, and it separates the court of the women from the court of the men. When you go into this area beyond the barricades, all men have to be wearing some kind of head covering. You can bring your own, or you can borrow one of the ones they've got for you. I bring my own because I don't want to have whatever everyone else had on the loners. You just don't know.
Is that the entire western wall right there?
Just about.
Smaller than I thought.
It's really interesting because it's also called the Kotel. To the right, there's a barricaded area where it's only for women. When they have bar mitzvahs and stuff, and they end up going past these barricades over here. It's funny that you'll have a bunch of guys doing their thing, dancing and singing, and then they'll get up close to the wall of the barricade so the women can hang over the edge and still be kind of part of the party, if you will. But to the upper left-hand little bit of the there's a flat wall, and there's a covered area. There's some doors that will take you in and then down. Actually, to the left of the picture, on the very bottom, you can walk into these areas that are covered. And it used to be they had all kinds of Kabbalah. There's different sects of Judaism, and Kabbalah is almost like the witchcraft section. There's another name for it, but
New Agey.
what's that?
It's not New Agey.
Yeah, all the New Age stuff. And they were down there burning candles and all kinds of weird stuff. But they've turned it into a yeshiva, which is a Jewish school. And so you can go down there and you can go in there and walk around. And they've got books and Old Testament scriptures and tables and stuff for everyone to study. So but you go past that in what's called the Rabbi Tunnel. And this section of the wall, and I'm going to say when you get down there, when you get the whole thing, it's maybe 75 yards in width, including the men's and women's section. It continues beyond that. We're going to see that here in a few more pictures, I think, or another set of pictures. But basically, this is what the world sees. They've excavated to the right and down about 80 feet. And when they excavated to the right and down 80 feet, they hit the actual original pavement of when the temple stood there. And it's a place where Jesus actually walked.
No.
Right, what you're seeing here, you're only seeing the top 40 feet of the wall, or the retaining wall. It goes down another 80 feet. When the Romans destroyed it and pushed all the junk from the temple and everything over the edge, they just built over the top of it. And that's the level that they're standing at. And so the excavations you'll see on the right, now I've got pictures of that. When the Roman soldiers pushed the top stones off the building, it fell 110 feet and it hit the pavement and dented the pavement, because there's actually subterranean stuff underneath that, like sewers, that kind of thing. And you can see where the stones actually fell when they began to pile up. Well, they've removed all those stones and excavated out and got down to the original pavement. So we're going to be there. There was a cornerstone at the top of the temple structure. And understand, there's the temple itself, then there's the courtyard, then there was temple courtyard buildings, okay, storage houses, all kinds of stuff. And they were bigger than the temple. Because you guys remember the dimensions of the temple? It was like 60 feet in length, 30 feet in width. But the first half was the holy place. The second half, if you will, separated by a curtain, was the Holy of Holies. And so imagine a building that's that big, just 110 feet tall. All right, that was the temple. Well, Solomon's colonnades and his porches and all these different things that they built and that were rebuilt. And then Herod the Great came in and finished it off more. But there was these other outbuildings all around the temple courtyard. The tallest of those buildings was on this edge by what's known as Robinson's Arch, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, the Roman soldiers, as they dismantled the temple and the Temple Mount, the top cornerstone piece fell down. Well, they found it. It was the actual cornerstone. And they since took it and put it in a museum, but they made a replica that's sitting there to that day, and you can see it when we get there. It's pretty amazing because you're walking on, quote unquote, the street or the pavement that Jesus would have walked on. So you go down the Via Dolorosa, yeah, they made a Via Dolorosa, there's some things like that you got, over the centuries they just made stuff. This is the real deal. When you get to Solomon's porch, you'd be sitting on the steps that Jesus and his apostles would have walked up and down. Because they've excavated it to that point. And so it's super, super cool. And so anyway, when we go to the Rabbi's Tunnel, what it is, and we're waiting on to get into where that little shed is, it goes to the left. This is the part of the wall that you see every day. That is maybe, I'm going to put this on pause for a second. That is maybe a tenth of the length of that side of the retaining wall for the temple. Okay? And if you look at these maps, Okay. Here's the western wall, right here, about that much. But you got all this that goes down to here, that makes the corner. Can you guys, anybody see that, or am I totally? And then from the western wall plaza is right there, that little gold box. The rest of it goes all the way down here, and then you get into the area that's the Antonia Fortress. And so what they did was they called it the Rabbi Tunnel. That's just the name they gave it because it was close to the Temple Mount. But it's the west facing retaining wall for all that. And so it was not an original tunnel. They just dug to see what they would find, because again, when they cleared off the Temple Mount, for most of it, they filled in dirt, and they built the Arab quarter over it, and they built the Armenian quarter over it, and which they, by the way, have not excavated. And so when they destroyed all this stuff, they just built on top of the rubble. So the tunnel goes through all that, and so you go down into and they hit other tunnels that were there that didn't know about, for the Antonia Fortress and for a water supply. That you get into the barracks where the soldiers were. They have in the barracks where the soldiers were. They've got etchings in the ground where the soldiers played games. Mm-hmm. And remember that they brought Jesus into the praetorium, and they played games with Jesus. Not nice games. And so anyway, you get down there and you see some of this stuff, and it's like, wow, this is where the soldiers, lived and all this stuff. Anyway, when you go through the Rabbi's Tunnel at the very end of it, and I'll point that out here as I do a couple pictures, you come out on the Via Dolorosa, and it's the way of agony or whatever, the way of suffering. And so I'm just sitting there waiting around, and you see all these guys in their hats, and different hats, by the way, are different sects or different rabbis. Rabbi Shlomo has this kind of hat. Rabbi whoever has that kind of hat. So they all wear the same kind of hat as the rabbi. Right.
You say you go down to the sewer. Have they made a new sewer, or are they still using the old?
No, they made new sewers and stuff. Yeah. These were all ones that were built, before Herod. And so, anyway, just working.
When you go down there, that's the originals.
Yeah, we're not going to go down into that sewer, but.
So why do they have curls?
It's just a style. I mean, Hasidic Jews typically have the curls on the side. I don't know why. And so Orthodox Jews, Hasidic Jews, and they got it's like 31 flavors. They got all kinds. You see some that wear the flat hats, some wear the bear caps, some wear just the yarmulke, and so this is a good prospect. You can see, in fact, that wall. I'm pointing my computer like you can see that. The stone wall there, you go past that and it drops down about 80 feet, and to the original pavement. And you'll see that in another picture coming up.
And that's the women's side on the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fence you see right there, that's the court of the women, present day.
So they can actually they'll be able to get all the way up to the wall.
Absolutely, yeah. You just can't do it with your husband or with your wife.
So you want to start a story?
Yeah.
Little
We're
problem.
not really into the whole tranny thing right now, so but and it's interesting. You see guys down there, everyday people. You see rabbis. You see yeshiva students. Bobbing. They got the phylacteries on, all that kind of stuff. Some people just go down and touch the wall, walk away. I touch the wall. I just didn't want to touch it, but you look up and people are fixing stuff and doing things. So it's really cool. This is down in the Rabbi Tunnel, and like I said, it just runs the length of the Temple Mount, and then you end up going down some dark places, lower, because as they excavate, they found different Crusader stuff and Ottoman stuff and layers of different things, and there's some areas where you can kind of gather a little bit and talk some, and our tour guide will give us some clues. They got some models down there that show the destruction and the construction and different things. And it's kind of low light, so you don't get to see everything. But you get down at one point, and you'll see a stone, one particular stone, part of the Temple Mount, that's like 40 feet long, 8 feet high, and 12 feet thick. And it's like, how did they move that puppy? and then they get it to fit where you can't get a piece of paper in between that rock and the next one. I mean, the craftsmanship that went into this was pretty killer. And again, it's all shored up and stuff because they were tunneling through rubble. To see that, and so you see that they got the things in the stones. That's where they put pieces of wood so they could pick it up and carry it, or move it, different things.
So it looks like Nick.
Except with the swastika.
Yeah.
Do they have earthquakes in Israel?
What's that?
Do they have earthquakes in Israel?
Yes, all the time.
Wow.
In fact, that's why most of the cisterns don't work. We're going to get to a place called Bet Shan, beautiful Roman city that was completely destroyed by an earthquake. Yeah, you'll see that as we get going. That's looking. No, that's a tunnel down, but what does it say?
You know what Bet Shan means?
Bet Shan, house of. Can't remember right now. Bet is house, but I don't remember what Shan is. Anyway, I'm kind of flipping through these little kind of quick because we can do this forever, but to me it's just kind of cool how they dug this tunnel.
And you with 35 millimeter? Digital?
Yeah, my digital, yeah. And so I'm not even taking a camera this time around. My wife and my kids all take pictures like crazy, and I'm just gonna keep talking. But this is part of the pavement down near the, I think, the Antonia Fortress. I got it right.
What's the Antonia Fortress?
On the Temple Mount, there's the temple and all that stuff. The Romans, when they conquered the city, they built a fortress connected to the Temple Mount. And so they knew that the temple was the center of Judaism, and if they controlled that, they controlled the nation essentially. And so there were different phases of things the Romans did. At one point, the Romans didn't like the high priest, so they just said, "You're not the high priest anymore. We're going to appoint this guy." And so there was political appointments for high priest. At one point, when the Jews were rabble-rousers, they came in and said, "Give us all your temple implements, like the things used for sacrifices and all that stuff." And they kept them at the Antonia Fortress, and so the Jews every day had to go get permission from the Romans to do their sacrifices. And so, or if they saw a commotion going on, they were right there. They could just rush in and take over. And so it was a big deal. And that's remember where Paul was taken at one point. He caused a riot down there, and so they rescued him and pulled him back. They were going to scourge him and say it's lawful to scourge a Roman citizen and all that. So all that kind of stuff. You can see how that's looking up, and that's like 25 feet up or so. Then we get into the quarry part where they're cutting out stones to put. One thing you learn in Israel is big stones is big money. Little stones is little money. And so you see parts of the wall where King Herod built it. He was a rich guy, big stones. Later on, when the Turks came back, they were cheap, little stones. And so you can kind of see some of the different periods of archaeology based on the size of stones that the walls are made of and stuff. And what they're doing here, they're just cutting a wedge between the stones, and they get underneath it, and they break out the bottom, and they cut another one. And that's part of the quarry. They just cut out rocks, and then they'd haul them out and put them where they wanted to. I just remember moving rocks in our backyard with my kids and using Jerry's tractor, thinking I'm really glad I had Jerry's tractor. These guys did it all by hand, so.
What's this?
Go ahead.
What's this part right here? It's narrow.
This is a part where the Romans had dug tunnels. So as they're digging the rabbi tunnel, they come and boom, they hit another tunnel. And so they just poured concrete in the bottom and went with their tunnel, along the edge of the wall there. And so this is a water cistern. You can't tell real good, but it's full of water and storage and stuff. There's a better picture. But, Roman fortress, they set it up so they could sustain a siege for a long time. And so part of that, you have to have water. Otherwise you get thirsty and you're all done.
Yes, water.
Yeah, it's not real pretty, but desperate times calls for desperate measures. And then as you come out of this tunnel, you come out of the Via Dolorosa. And the Catholic Church has, the Stations of the Cross along that and everything else. but it's it's generally the pathway that Jesus took to Calvary after being condemned by Pilate. So you get to walk through the Arab Quarter, which is kind of fun. And and there was I haven't gotten to it yet, but that arch you see there is called the Ecce Homo Arch, because positionally, that's where you ever heard the term Gabbatha, the pavement, the judgment seat. That's where the spot more or less where they think Pilate said, "Behold the man, Ecce Homo." I mean, and they identified this stuff around 300 AD, 316 AD or so, and they just kind of stuck with it. And so naturally, there's a Catholic church and a monastery and all that kind of stuff there. Yeah, if you ever get lost, where am I? That's all. That's looking at it from the other angle. And then Pool of Bethesda and some other stuff there. And that's down in another part. Because you go into this Catholic monastery, and they take you down into the underground stuff where you can see more of what was going on there. And then now we're in this is actually in the Antonian Fortress. That's where the monastery is built. So you see these etchings on the ground, pictures of it anyway, because I got pictures later on of some of that stuff. Like that's on the floor. They protected it with that glass thing and lit it up. But that's where the Roman soldiers were carving. Kilroy was here. Whatever.
I was reading the slide. It says that it's a game called King for the Day.
What's that?
King for the Day.
Yeah.
Once they crown Jesus with horns.
So it's kind of cool to go down there. They had horse stalls down there and all kinds of stuff. Then you come out, and there's the Ecce Homo Arch again. And
there he is.
hey.
So, not to interrupt, but so when I get over there and I want to have some kind of system, how to all these pictures I'm taking, so when I get home to know what they are. You just took a snapshot of your notes.
Yep.
After that, but you would have to have it on your phone then, because I guess you could do that with a regular camera too.
Yeah, that's what I used one camera the whole time.
Okay.
I hardly used my phone at all actually, because I was trying to kind of get better pictures. But whatever you do, be kind of consistent. Or I don't know if you got to see my Bible study geek costume, but my backpack with the loop on it for my camera that was hanging right about here. I tied a knot in the strap, and I had my Bible with my notebook on top of that. And everywhere I went, I didn't bring my notebook with me, but I used up almost the whole spiral bound notebook, and just kept taking notes. Day one, this place, that place, the other place, and then I'd take pictures to kind of keep track of all that stuff. That way, when I get home, I could go over my pictures again and go over my notes again. I transcribed all my notes, rewrote them and neatened them up, and that's what I use honestly to teach on that kind of thing. So. But that helps burn into my memory too, by taking the notes and everything. So I think note taking is real important. And I'll just say there's a balance too, because you can be so focused looking down, taking notes that you're not looking up and seeing all the stuff you're looking at. But there's a balance in that, because I don't want to just go there, have the sights and all that stuff, and go home and man, what did I see? I want to remember it, because for many people it's a once in a lifetime trip. So, and that's why. We're going to get, I forgot what they call them, but it's basically a communication system where you're given a battery pack with earbuds that plug into it, and I'd encourage you to bring your own earbuds if you want to. They give you some chintzy ones like you get on the airlines, but you plug in the earbuds, and then whoever's the speakers, the tour guide and myself, will have another one that transmits. And so while we're all together, even though other people might be there speaking French or Chinese or whatever, you'll hear in the earbuds whatever the tour guide or myself are saying. And so it's kind of cool that you don't miss much. But part of the etiquette of the tour is that when the tour guide's talking or when I'm talking, nobody else should be talking. And it's hard because you see, look at that, and you get excited about stuff, but you don't want to take away from somebody else's experience of being able to hear everything. And so I kind of treat it honestly like the whole thing's like I'm at church. I expect that, there won't be any distractions or things, hopefully, to keep away from being able to hear and receive everything. So yeah, I do the whole note thing the whole way.
You wouldn't recommend Bluetooth because of the battery life.
What's that?
You wouldn't recommend Bluetooth because of the battery life and then plus the connection.
Well, I don't know how you would use Bluetooth anyway.
I think the older units they probably don't.
No, they supply that. It's got
Yeah,
batteries that
I see.
last for a week.
Right.
You'll keep it for the whole, a couple of weeks that we're on the tour. And so that's separate from your phone or anything else. And there's charging stations inside the buses as we're driving around, USB ports and stuff. So your phones would be, even if you're, I would put them on airplane mode while you're rolling around because otherwise you're searching for a signal. Or you get the service, pay the extra $30 to get the service. It's well worth it. So now we're cruising around the old city a little bit, and we're headed on our way, I think, to St. Anne's Cathedral in a minute. So this is the north side of the Temple Mount. So we came out, we kept going north, came out the Via Dolorosa, went one direction for a little ways, and we turned around, and now we've gone the other direction, which takes us around the north side of the Temple Mount. And you can see the minaret there, and this area that's blocked off. But if you went through that gate and up to where those trees are, you'd be up by the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Or actually the courtyard on the north side of that. But I mean, you could just go open field walking and you'd be at the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Oh, really? So the elevation's
Yeah,
higher there.
yeah. Well, you go up some stairs, there's one of the stuff to get out of the rabbi tunnel.
It's the Alaska Mosque. Thank you.
The Al-Aqsa Mosque. Remember, there was the Golden Dome Mosque. That's the Dome of the Rock. The Al-Aqsa Mosque was the gray domed mosque. If you were looking from the Mount of Olives towards the old city, it was the gray dome mosque to the left. And you'll see it again in a minute. I'll show you. But so you walk around, and there's cars mixed in here and there. I don't know how they drive any cars around, but you get to St. Anne's. There's Matthew. There's my Grace and I, with our older kids, took a picture here at this bench 20-some years ago. And I'm thinking, hey, where is everybody? And believe it or not, I'm skinnier in this picture than I was in the last one. But anyway, St. Anne's is really interesting for a couple of reasons. One is when the Muslims reconquered the city, they destroyed any vestige of Christianity. They try to wipe it all out and then recreate kind of a Muslim, area that's free of all that. But this is such a serviceable building, they kept it. And then eventually the Christians came back, and then the Jews came back, and now that they use it. But it's sitting on top of the Pool of Bethesda. Now, I thought the Pool of Bethesda, and that's where, remember, Jesus walks up to the guy, hey, do you want to be healed? No, there's no, because the angel's supposed to stir the water and all that kind of stuff. Well, when I think about the Pool of Bethesda, I think about like an Olympic pool or a really big swimming pool that's maybe just a few feet deep. But the Pool of Bethesda was like an acre or 2 acres. And so they built a lot of stuff on top of it. And St. Anne's is one of them. It's built over the top of the Pool of Bethesda. And you'll see as we get going here in a minute, this is one of the places where we have to be prepared to sing. Because when you go inside, and I think I got pictures of that, when you get inside, and these are the pools, but they built a Catholic monastery and churches and all kinds of stuff on top of it. And so these are the ruins of the Crusader church and fortress that are over the top of the Pool of Bethesda. But and you can see it's pretty far down there. Because again, the whole city was turned into rubble and they built over the top of it and all that. So these are the ruins of the Crusader fortress, and everything was on top of it. But it's, again, that's St. Anne's in front of it. And
when did they build St. Anne's? What century?
Oh, like 11th century, 1100 AD or something like that. And you can see they got people living all around it. It's high density housing. Some are Jews, some are Arabs, and I couldn't figure it all out. But there it is in Arabic, where they repurposed the building for an Arabic school. And so, but since then, but that's the inside. That's the inside. That's more of the inside. But you can see all these high arches and all this kind of stuff. The acoustics are awesome. And so, what happens is there's always kind of group. You go in, there's people milling around groups and stuff, but they got rows of chairs. So you just go in and you wait to kind of get towards the front, and then we'll lead off like, in a song. What's the one I was thinking of? You know the one.
I love you, Lord.
Huh?
Amazing
Yeah,
grace.
sing Hallelujah is the one.
Oh.
I love you, Lord. Words, but sing Hallelujah to the Lord.
Starts and stops.
Man, when everybody's in harmony and you're hearing it, it's echoing through the whole building. And you turn around and I'm not kidding you, you'll see people crying because it sounds amazing. There was two guys that were claimed to be kind of worship leaders in our group. They both started songs that they didn't know the words to, couldn't finish. And the rest of us kind of fumbled. And I kept, I wasn't the guy to lead it, so. But I've got read, prepare songs ahead of time for inside the church.
We'll make sure everybody has lyrics.
Yeah. Well, we'll do that. We're going to make up little booklets and we'll get that done.
And what's that place called?
St. Anne's. And so it's just, and the significance of it biblically is zero. Okay? Because it's just a Catholic church built on top of, the significance of this location is that it's the pool of Bethesda. And so when we teach there, we'll be talking about the miracles that Jesus did and how he healed the things that happened and stuff.
That's outside the
Well,
southeast wall.
well, let's look at the map. You get to it. It is. It's down over here in this area somewhere. It's not very close to the wall. So it's part of the old city, but it's not. And if I look in here long enough, I'll find it. So I found it the other day.
I think it's right in the middle.
What's that?
I think it's right in the middle.
Well, you'd say I'm looking right at it. But I probably am. But that's why we started the map, so we learn that stuff, right? So, but yeah, it's not really close to the old city Temple Mount. I mean, it's in the old city. But anyway, this is just a lot of fun. And you can't do a Bible study in there. They've got priests and people that are kind of like caretakers. And if you behave poorly or unruly or out of control kids or whatever, they will come kick you out. And so it's very much a church to them. So we got to be.
We have to behave.
Reverend. And you know what? This is another one of those locations that you have to be like women have to be dressed modestly. They don't let guys with short pants in. You go to the religious locations, and they hold everybody to a standard in terms of dress and that kind of thing. And so this is one of them. But sometimes people don't want to go in there. It's the only Catholic church in the whole place that I actually like to go into because of the acoustics and what you can do there. All the other places are really kind of.
Will the zip pants work?
Yes, absolutely.
As long as you zip the pants on.
So now, yeah.
No pinky holes. No partial zips. Zip tight.
But I don't know about you guys, but I walk all over the old city, and I walk because the tour kept moving, and we've all got to kind of keep moving. But I can just stop and stand in one place for like half an hour and just like look around, people watch, look at the rocks, look at the buildings, look at the architecture, and take it on and just kind of soak it all in. And I wish we had, and we didn't drill this into it, but I kind of wish we had a free day. We had we had a half a free day when we went before, and they just kind of turned it loose and hey, just find your way back to the hotel somehow, and just go out there and walk around and explore. And it's kind of nice, to do that. And maybe the next trip we'll kind of plan that into it. But again, this is just pictures of walking around the old city. And this is the Lions Gate, or St. Stephen's Gate. This is on the northeastern end of the old city and Temple Mountain stuff. And this is where Stephen was stoned. And then we're back out to looking at the Church of All Nations to the right, and St. Mary's with the golden domes there.
You said northeastern was the Damascus Gate?
The Damascus Gate is a little farther back. The Stephen's Gate, and it comes around, and then Damascus Gate's actually kind of around the corner from that one.
Michael, these pictures are from January.
Yeah.
That's the weather.
February.
That's
January.
what I was gonna ask. What kind of temperature range when we're going, do you think?
I think it's going to be nicer. There'll be days where it's warm and you won't want to wear a jacket. And but it's like spring around here. I mean, it could rain or snow. But more than likely it's going to be temperate weather. One of the things we could have got schedule-wise, because of Passover and some of the other feasts that come just before this time, because I was trying to get us there earlier, because we're going actually in the prime time when everybody wants to go to Israel. It's the middle of the spring, so you have the best weather. And because of that, there's a premium on hotels and all that kind of stuff.
Could you bring in your jacket as an example for us? The one that you're prideful of? That you had and nobody else
No
did or
jacket
wish they
for you.
did?
Oh, I gave that away.
You coated
Well,
in
you
colors.
I gave it away in my pride. No, actually, that was a jacket that I had. It was called a quad parka, a heavier outer shell, and inside it had a down like a vest with sleeves on it and stuff. And I gave that to my son George to take to Ireland because he'd be cold there. And but I got another jacket that I think will be just as cool.
Can you bring it as an example?
I will. And it's layering is the best thing. If you bring a heavy jacket, sometimes you get kind of too hot and you want to wear it. So I brought a sweatshirt, a sweater, a long sleeve kind of t-shirt thing, and a couple long sleeve shirts, and then I brought like 4 different short sleeve shirts, which I wore most of the time. And I brought
Is your sweater like that one?
yeah, just a lightweight sweater. So layer it. And then I brought 3 pairs of pants. I could have gotten away the last time I took just 2 pairs of pants, but then one of them got completely ruined on the trip. And I was down to 1 pair, so I thought, I'll bring. And it was only ruined because they were like really old, and I tore them up by accident. They were just old shot anyway. But, so I bring like 3 pairs of pants, 2 of which were the zip-off legs. I don't bring any shorts. That time around, I didn't bring a bathing suit because I'd been there enough times to realize I wasn't really going to use it. If you want to go in the Dead Sea, which you can, then you want to bring a bathing suit.
You must do it. Everybody must do that. You float like a cork.
Yeah, you float like a cork.
the water.
And when you're at the Dead Sea, by the way, it's a totally secular area. So, I mean, we want everyone to wear, like ladies wear kind of modest bathing suits and stuff. But down there's no rules like that. So, and I found that if you dip a person in mud, because they have these mud baths down there where you can, bury yourself in mud and get all over your face, all over your body and stuff. And then nobody can tell who anybody is anyway. Then you go wash off in the Dead Sea.
Don't wear a light colored bathing suit. It'll stain it.
Yeah, the mud will stain suits and stuff. But you have to have Tevas or something like that. Chris.
Is there laundry
Yes.
anywhere that you wash?
Every hotel we've got got laundry. Particularly the Dead Sea, there's outdoor showers and stuff, and changing rooms, all that kind of thing. And so you can kind of wash off all most of the mud and all that kind of
You don't have
junk.
to bring a ton of stuff. You can bring a little bit and wash it.
They have
Yeah.
laundry service. Don't think they have washers and dryers available. So
I
I did that once through the trip.
there were a couple guys that when they got there, they bought like a little thing of laundry detergent, and they washed their clothes in their room in the bathtub, and just hung them out to dry. Because your hotels, the first hotel we're at, it's like for 5 days. The second hotel down at Dead Sea, we're there just overnight. And then the one after that, we're there for the rest of the trip, like 3 or 4 or 5 days. And so you've got opportunity to do that. I personally brought enough clothes where I didn't have to do any laundry. My suitcase was still 1/3 empty when I took it. And it was just about that way when I went back too. But there is laundry service. You can pick, like any high-end hotel.
Grace, you said you used it, so how did that work?
Great.
Like you did,
I took it. I sent it out.
You can take it on the front desk, put it in the bag.
Yeah.
It's got your name on it, a tag.
They
Like
bring it back
the
to
cleaners.
Socks or no socks in the Tevas?
No socks.
No socks, because
If you're gonna wear socks, make sure you wear black socks so you look like a German tourist. No, I didn't. When I'm wearing Tevas, I just barefoot in my Tevas because when you come out, I mean, you can change back in your shoes if you want to, but I just wore Tevas. I took my shoes and socks off, stuffed them on my backpack, off I went, and then when I got out, you get to the area and I just kind of draw it off my feet, and And I had a little hand towel that I had to keep on backpack. I use that to dry my feet, put on my socks, and away I went. But if you bring 4 socks down there, then you got wet, soggy socks you drag around all day. So there was one guy, well, Fred, my roommate. He didn't think of any of that stuff, so he just wore his tennis shoes and his socks through the thing. And so then he, after a couple of days of wet, smelly, not quite dry shoes and socks and 60-year-old man odor. Yeah, so I would suggest some kind of Tevas, barefoot, and get out and dry off.
You don't wear tennis shoes without socks anymore?
No, I've never done that. That's not sanitary.
We used to.
Yeah. I can tell.
You've
No,
never done that?
I pack light.
Oh, when you were a kid.
I'm not so worried about fashion, so I can survive on like 3 or maybe 4 shirts for 2 weeks and be just fine. Just rotate them around, nobody knows.
I do.
But I mean, quite honestly, you just got to think ahead about what you're going to wear, how you're going to pack and stuff. And it's when I was with Boy Scouts, we used to do pack inspections, and I'd go through the packs and you don't need this, and that, check the superfluous stuff. But we're not doing that this time around. So.
What'd Sally bring up?
A suitcase this big. I'm trying to make it work.
Well, one of the things I did is I got like all my I took like 12 T-shirts, which is the bulky, the biggest item I had to take. And I took half of them, and I put them in a 1-gallon Ziploc baggie, and I crunched it down. And I got put it on the floor, put a book on top of it, and smushed it down, and halfway zipped it, and got all the air out of it. Then I zipped it up all the way, and it compacted like this big. That big heavy jacket I told you about. Grace found me some 2 or 3 gallon Ziploc baggies, and I got it folded up, and I got it shoved in there. And I shoved that thing down, and it wasn't hardly any bigger than Grace's Bible right here. I mean, it was a little bit bigger area-wise. But I could take big, bulky things and just squish them down with Ziploc baggies. And that's why I only used 2/3 of my suitcase. And it wasn't like a real big suitcase. It was a decent size. But
Walmart sells those things you hook to your vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
yeah. And I tell you what, it works great. So, 12 pairs of socks. I didn't worry about laundry the whole time. When I traveled with Terry Johnson one time to Israel, he took like 3 days worth of clothes, and he was just constantly washing his clothes. And knock yourself out, But I don't. Well, he washed them.
Oh no, Nicholas.
They smelled good. He smelled good, and he's a beautiful man. But anyway, guys don't mind doing that. When I get home to my room, I don't want to be worried about laundry. I want to be going over my notes. I want to be thinking about, trying to retain things. And so it's to each your own. But, anyway, so
you said that you could. Your first session we had is on YouTube now. The Facebook one.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't seen it, but John says.
No, John says.
It's up there. It came into 2 parts, so I'm gonna try to connect them to so it's just one thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we talked about some of those things too. And, as we get closer to the trip, honestly, we're going to have a few meetings, just meetings, not just on fellowship, but where everyone that's going kind of has to be there. And we're going to go through what to pack, what not to pack, and the electrical adapters and different things that we need.
Do you know what type it is? This is an H.
I can't see it that good from here with the lighting.
You can Google it.
Yeah, this is an adapter that works pretty good. Not all the outlets are 3-prong. Some of them are only 2-prong.
Came with a free tack on Amazon.
Yeah, and 2 things can happen. You can actually break off the 3rd prong and stick it in there, like I've done a couple times. Or they've got some pretty inexpensive ones I didn't bring with me. But you can buy the adapters at Walmart, all kinds of travel places. That's not an issue. And I bring.
And what style is it?
It's basically a 2-prong like this.
Okay.
I'll bring you one next week and show it again so everybody can see it. But they have them all over the place. And so you just bring that, then you plug in. Don't bring a blow dryer because they're in all the hotels. But you can plug in your cell phone chargers, that kind of stuff, and it flies.
So no blow dryers, no curling irons?
Don't bring them.
Don't bring
I
them.
did.
Don't
Yeah.
break
And even with the adapter, it fried my blow dryer.
Well,
They-
all the hotel
they
rooms,
have blow dryers.
They have them.
Use theirs.
all the hotel rooms have blow dryers.
Okay.
They will not have curling irons. You can talk to the Hasidic Jews, maybe they'll let you borrow theirs.
And you just
Oh, yeah.
I know somebody that traveled with a butane one, you know what?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
You
cool.
What's this all about?
That is like an international, we can plug all the other
Butane
kinds of
and curling
plugins.
iron.
There's different countries have different plugins.
If you're desperate.
Different
Or hats. Hats are our friends.
That style, like for Israel specifically?
I'll bring those. They're actually less expensive probably than those, and they work everywhere. And you only need them in your hotel room because on the bus there's going to be USB ports. On the plane going over there's USB ports. So it's only like at night, you know, if you want to charge your phone overnight or whatever. But my guess is by the time you get to your room, your phone's going to be 80% charged anyway, because you'll be on the bus doing it.
If you put an airplane.
Yeah. So we'll go over all that stuff again, probably multiple times. But yeah, because I bought a whole pack like you get at Walmart, and it had all these things from all these different countries, and the little one that I used for Israel, the 2-prong one, it works every time. And the hard part is when you get over there, and somebody goes, "Hey, can I borrow your phone charger?"
No.
And
How do I put
or
this nice
hey, I don't have an adapter. Do you have an adapter? And I said, "Yeah, I do, but I bought it for me."
Well, they have snacks more for night. Some people graze
Yeah,
all night.
that's good. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, you won't go away hungry. There's lots and lots of food, and I carry snacks in my backpack, like granola bars and that kind of junk. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing because I hope this doesn't happen. I'm sure it won't. But one time I got on a plane that broke down. All kinds of things happened, and we spent almost 24 hours on the plane on the ground, and so they ran out of food and all kinds of stuff. But we're not flying that airline, so it's just fine. Anyway.
Always have water, always have food.
So buy it here and take it with us, or
You
buy
can't. You can do food, but like water. We just every time we
Well-
go through security, once you get on the other side, buy water
buy
Yeah.
water.
to take onto the plane. Even though they give you beverages,
Okay.
Well,
you can.
with security for Israel is different than other places.
Okay.
And typically, when you get through security in most places, you like Grace was saying, you can buy water and stuff. I did that, and then when I went through the extra security for Israel, they made me check my water. And so we'll have to kind of wait and see. But we're getting a direct flight from Frisco to Tel Aviv, and so you should be pretty much okay. But what I would encourage you to do is plan on bringing a carry-on, like a backpack or something, and in that carry-on have an extra set of underwear, an extra set of socks, and maybe one shirt. Something small that you can just throw like in a Ziploc, that isn't going to take a lot of space. Just on the off chance, what would happen if you get over there, but your luggage goes to Ireland? You know what I mean? And that way you're not totally out in the lurch. Israel is a first world country. There isn't anything you can't get there or here. It's all the same.
Except in the supermarket.
Well, their markets are packed full. Their markets are nice. I've been in them, yeah.
So as we're going through all these pictures and really all we see is stone, I don't see stores anywhere. Like you said, we could just go get whatever.
Well,
Are they in
I think last week I ran past, I showed you the things that interested me, like the selection of good humor bars in ice cream. And,
That's all you need. You don't need
and,
to close the
we went to a shawarma shop, and there were several shops in that area. And you're going to see lots of shops, but they don't have any quote-unquote supermarkets in the old city. In the old city, it's just little shops here and there, and there's lots of kind of stuff you can get. But when you get into Jerusalem proper, all those people got to eat, and so there's supermarkets, all that kind of stuff. And it's different brands. I mean, some of it's the same kind of brands, like C&H Sugar or Coke or whatever. But a lot of them is their own Israeli
What size
brands.
city is Jerusalem large?
Hmm?
What is it similar to that we may know? Sacramento?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's as big as Sacramento, but that's not a bad comparison. Reno for sure. You know, so there's lots of stuff and lots of people. So this is coming back around. We're leaving. I think we're headed to Genesis Land or something, which is really a lot of fun. Yep, Genesis Land. This is an interesting place. It's outside of Jerusalem, and this is one of the other places that we're going to go. That is, we're going to go eat lunch out there, and you know, I'm not always a good participator. You know, when they say we want you to dress up like this or put on this costume, I'm kind of going, have a nice day, I'll watch. You know, but this is they made me, so I did it.
Do you have pictures?
I do actually. You'll see it in a minute. Trying to find the spot here. Right here. You can't see it. Here's Jerusalem. Here's Jerusalem, the red area. The little gray area right in the middle of all that is the old city. Okay, the little gray area right in the middle of that. And then outside of Jerusalem, in a place called Elan, which is out in the Judean wilderness, so it's outside the city, headed towards Jericho, but about halfway between Jericho and the old city. It's called Genesis Land, and that's one of the days where you get a free lunch, and it's your chance to ride a camel. Yeah, everybody gets to ride a camel.
Everybody gets to.
Yep, it's awesome.
About 7 or 8 miles out.
What's that?
7 or 8 miles out.
A little more than that, probably. Anyway, you get there, and Eleazar gives this kind of spiel on Genesis Land and all that kind of stuff. And it's actually, there's a little kibbutz about a quarter mile from this place, and filled with Americans, Jews that made Ayala, and this is their business, so they stay afloat. And he'll give you some of the history on that. And you see the caves all around the place, where the shepherds would stay at night. And that's what it looks like.
And where's that?
This is outside of Jerusalem, a place called Elan. It's out in the Judean wilderness.
Green.
Okay. There's wilderness versus desert. Okay. Wilderness, there's still food for the sheep. Desert, there's no food for the sheep. Okay.
But there's rocks. There's a lot of rocks.
It's a lot of rocks. So it's a good place to get stoned.
Oh, now that'll go.
Well, you know, yeah. I guess there's no place good to get stoned. But anyway. Well, if you had to get
What are we
stoned,
talking about?
there's lots of ammo there. Well, you guys are thinking like smoking too. I'm sorry. I was thinking, man, what the hell were you guys? That's exactly what I was thinking, by the way. Camels are amazing. You won't get all the information on this tour. You just get an opportunity to ride one. But each camel can actually carry 2,000 pounds of stuff. Yes, they can carry a ton of stuff. And because I'm with another guy, and they want to put me and this other kind of big guy on a camel, and we're kind of going, no, have pity on the camel. You know? And they go, no, this camel can carry 2,000 pounds, and at best the two of you together are like 500 pounds or whatever. And so, anyways, the interesting part was on the previous trip. Me and this other big guy are on a camel, and Pete Lorenzen, who's not a real big guy, and another guy that was with him, who's not a real big guy, on a camel. And you ever seen those cartoons where the camels go splat and the legs go out like that? This camel slipped going down an embankment in the mud, and split and splayed out, spread eagle. Never saw, I've seen that in cartoons. You never, and I couldn't get to my camera quick enough, But I always tell Pete that he is the straw.
Are you sure you didn't hear
Anyway, they
say-
take you for a ride for like about 100-something yards. It's not a long one.
Are you sure you didn't hear somebody just say, yeah, the camels can carry a ton of stuff?
Well, you don't know. I've heard two different.
No.
Yeah. I've heard two different guys teach on that. They explain that. And so obviously they don't load them up with that kind of saddle, but they do load them up.
Just don't let them spit on you, right?
Yeah, and you know what? We never had any problems with camels spitting on us.
Oh.
A couple times you get close together and I had one nip at my calf, like on a little piece of sweetmeat. But you know they're pretty docile. The guys are brutal with them. I mean the Arabs that run these guys around. But anyway, it's kind of fun to ride a camel. Just say you did.
They're like pack horses, right?
Yeah.
But they can be stubborn.
Feels
So,
like
personality.
Yeah. Well, and
Each one don't fun.
these saddles look a lot nicer than the saddles that I was on. And the saddles that I was on, after you've done and we did about a 3-mile trip. So I'll walk 3 miles next time, thank you. It's not super comfortable, but it's an experience. That's why these guys only take you for a couple hundred yards and call it good. What I didn't show you in the background here, you look out in the distance, and that's the Dead Sea down below, and Moab. Okay, Jordan. And so, kind of cool. They take you over these big tents, and typically they put everybody on the ground.
That's weird.
And they put everybody on the ground because that's what they would eat. They'd have these low tables. Everybody would kind of recline up to the table. But we made, and because Brian and Robin were there, and they've been there a number of times, you can request tables and chairs, which is probably what we're going to do. I can picture the whole Middle Eastern, that's how they eat thing. I'm good with that. When it comes time for lunch, I want to enjoy my meal. And so anyway, tables and chairs will be the cour de rigueur.
Why are they wearing those vests?
Well, that's the other part of it. They get into the whole, you're our guest, and so they want to dress you and take care of you, and they go through the whole Middle Eastern hospitality thing, and so everybody wears all the costumes, if you will, and it's basically just poncho, with head holes cut out and that kind of thing, and so we played along. That's what it looks like from the outside a little bit. And then look in the other direction. That's out towards, you can see a little bit of water almost down there. In the bottom, middle of the screen, and beyond that, there's the mountains of Jordan or Edom, Moab. And then, and that's I loved having my map with me, and everywhere we went, I tracked this, and I colored in a little circle or wrote on it or whatever. So later on, I could go, I went here, and I just like being able to show people that I went there.
And your modifications.
Yeah, and my modifications.
Get chairs.
What's that?
Order ahead, get chairs.
Yeah.
That's for our trip.
Yeah.
Chairs.
Yep. Well,
That's
yeah.
what he just described.
Brian and Robin are kind of telling me some of the ins and outs of some of this stuff, as we're going along, because I was on this trip.
We were on the ground.
Yeah. But,
They have pillows.
yeah, you sit on pillows, but,
Shelly doesn't want to be on the ground.
I'm with Shelley.
Where's your adventure?
So this, in the distance there, this is the settlement. Now, when you guys think about a settlement or kibbutz, people think of either dorms or tents or temporary living. But you can see they're building nice houses like you would find around here. Okay, and that's their settlement. This is probably one of the illegal settlements that Prime Minister Netanyahu gets in trouble for allowing to happen. It's not illegal, but I mean, that's what they do. They just go out and pick a hill and start building stuff, and then they probably have to truck water in, that kind of stuff.
Well, whose land is it?
It's the settlers buy it.
Oh.
It's not real estate is different there. Nobody really owns anything. The state of Israel owns everything, and then you can lease the land for 100 years or whatever. But land ownership is real dicey there. The Palestinians that own land, and they've got the rights to it, so to speak. But when they sell their rights to that land to somebody else, if they don't sell it to another Palestinian or Arab, the Muslims will kill them. I mean, it's really a big deal because the struggle in Israel is over land.
Because of Jubilee?
Huh?
Because of Jubilee?
They don't observe Jubilee anymore.
Why, they never did.
Right. But I mean, none of that exists. It's all like home ownership is really They own the home, but not the land under it. And so they got some, yeah, it's
Kind of like Mexico.
yeah, I guess. Okay, hey, what do you know? Put a map up. So you can see Jericho, which is Palestinian controlled. You used to be able to go in there. They would bring tourists and stuff, but they don't go there anymore because the Palestinians really aren't that nice to tourists either. First trip I went there, you could actually see the walls that had fallen over. They're still there.
The rebuilt Jericho, though. The original.
Well, there's Jericho, then there's Tel Jericho. Jericho today is a modern city, but Tel Jericho is the ruins of the old city of Jericho. And when we were there the first time, there was remnants of the walls that had fallen over during the original thing, because you could climb on them.
Do you have those pictures?
Yeah, in a scrapbook. Our kids are climbing on the walls.
Is
being
that
real
little
respectful.
town that you were talking about?
What's that?
Is that little town, or is that further north? East?
No, what you're seeing here is you see on the red area is Jerusalem. That little gray dot in the middle, that's the old city. That's where the Dome of the Rock, that's where the Temple Mount, all that stuff is. The red area around it is how the city's been built up around that area. Okay, and then you get to Jericho. This is the actual city, but the gray area is what's controlled by the Palestinian Authority. Then outside of you come down the road to Elan.
Oh, that's right.
Okay,
I see.
and Elan is where Genesis land is. And so I pointed, we're in the tents, and there's like this little, almost like a little road or a driveway right there, and you look across the little gully, and then there's those houses I showed you. Well, that's Elan. Okay. So what I like is that, when we go past Bethany, and Bethany was a very distinguishable location once upon a time. Today you get there, and it's just a massive city and houses and buildings, and it's like you go to Cana of Galilee, you go to Nazareth, some of these places. They were distinct villages at the time, but today you can't hardly tell because they're so built up, and not even just with the Catholic Church. Interesting when you see Nazareth, and we're not going to we might drive through Nazareth, but we're not going to stop. But when you go through Nazareth and you see it from a distance, biblical Nazareth is completely, absolutely 100% covered by a large Catholic church because it was a small village. And so they built this gigantic Catholic, monastery and all sorts of stuff over the top of it. But when you see modern day Nazareth, they got car dealerships and restaurants and grocery stores and buildings and houses and all kinds of stuff. And if you were to pick it out, you would never see it. If it wasn't for that church being there, you wouldn't have a clue where it was.
Where is Bethlehem?
Bethlehem, if you come out of Jerusalem and go down over this way towards Jonah, I'll show you on the map later on. Well,
is that under Israeli control, or it is?
Well, it's under Palestinian control. That's where we used to go to Bethlehem, but we don't anymore either because they had a really cool olive wood store there that got burned down by the bad guys. But Bethlehem, okay, it's just outside that map. But here's Jerusalem, and here's Bethlehem. It's just a few miles away. You guys see that? Jerusalem here, then Bethlehem down here.
So why can't we go?
It's just not safe. I mean, there's some people that go there in smaller groups and stuff and different things, but overall, it's just really not safe. I don't want to take us into Palestinian-controlled areas. There's areas of Israel that are A, B, and C. Area A is all Israeli. The IDF, the Binset, their police department, all those guys are large and in charge. Area B are some of the shared areas where the Israeli security is still in place, but it's a mix of Jews and Arabs. Area C is all Palestinian, and if an Israeli goes into one of those areas, they go to jail. Because if an Israeli wanders into one of those areas by accident, the Palestinians will kill him. And what happens is Israelis go into these places, or tourists go into these places, and it means the army and everybody else has to go in and rescue you if they even know you're being assaulted.
So now, How did they take Bethlehem?
Didn't take it.
They were given Bethlehem, part of the negotiations that go back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah, it's sad because once a year, you know, they during Christmas time, all that kind of stuff, they invite all the Christians to come, and a bunch do. You know, the local Christians, that
Make
kind of
money.
thing. What's that?
Make money.
Yeah, they're making money, but it's a wild card. You never know what's really going to happen. And quite honestly, I don't trust Palestinian security.
Are we going to any B areas?
Yes. I won't tell you though. No, I can tell you we're going to be in A areas a lot. We're going to be in and out, maybe through some B areas. And even there, we stopped and ate and did all kinds of stuff. And the average Muslim or the average Arab doesn't care. I mean, honestly, it's the 2% that are just throwing dirt in the air.
Where were the areas when they used to be bombers? That would they be in an A, B, or C area, or was it just?
They were going from C trying to get into A. And the Israelis, I tell you what, they had 50,000 illegal immigrants at one point a year, and they built these walls around the Palestinians.
Walls don't work.
And walls work great. They went from like 50,000 a year to like 11. And I mean, they've proven
11,
over and over
not
again.
11,000.
Huh?
11.
11,000. Right. And I read that stat just yesterday. But yeah, so we're not going to even get close. I mean, we'll drive by some of the area C, and you'll see big red signs. You'll see big red signs 2 times. One, when we're in the Golan, and then have these old minefields. They don't want you to go in the minefields to get blown up because of the Syrians and the Jordanians planted mines all through these fields, and they haven't been able to clear them. There's so many, and so they just turn cattle loose, and that's literally what they've done. But it's kind of cool because I don't know, I'm not a military buff, so I see these pictures of, you know, it says minefield, international symbols and stuff. You know, don't go there, get blown up, and then the other time you see the red signs. And you'll see them as you drive by Jenin and some of these other PLO encampments, you know, and they make it so clear. Anyone that goes in there is really dumb.
You really try to. You really try to get
dumb
a
people do
picture
dumb
of one
things.
going off.
But what's that?
You really try to get a picture of one going off.
Just throwing rocks out there. But no.
What kind of scale is that? Like how far from Jerusalem to Jericho? Any idea?
I want to say like 30 miles, something like that. It's like when we go to half the thing is they got traffic there like we do here, so you got a big old giant bus trying to get in and out of the city and stuff. And I tell you what, if you'll go away from Israel having respect for the bus driver.
Yeah.
The way that guy weaves in and out, and how close he comes, that kind of stuff. But the trip to Elan out of Jerusalem took us maybe 20 minutes, I'm going to guess. You know, so, but it's neat because you see all kinds of stuff. You see wild camels and donkeys, and I've seen ibexes, and I've seen foxes,
What's
and
an ibex?
the ibex is one of those horned,
Deer.
kind of deer-looking thing. I've seen conies, which is like a coney is like a cross between a rabbit and a ground squirrel. A hyrax, we call them hyrax. And so it's kind of fun because you see. I mean, if you're just paying attention, you see a lot of cool stuff. I've seen a lot of military things, tanks and artillery pieces and APCs, that kind of junk. And it's kind of fun. You're out there just talking, and all of a sudden some F-18 will buzz you, you know. And then you can't talk for a second because we're just looking up anyway. It doesn't matter. And you know, you see lots of cool stuff. So this is the.
So it's called an Arba. A desert's called the Arba.
I don't know.
What's it called in biblical times? Desert.
Desert place or wilderness.
Okay, wilderness.
What's
What's the Arba mean?
I'm not sure. Not really sure. Anyway, so that's kind of cool. And then that's just a picture of the. You can see the transition from desert to wilderness or back and forth. And here's your camels. And there's people riding the camels, so you know they survive. There's a funny thing on the Mount of Olives. it's the overlook. We're looking at the Golden Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and all this stuff. And there's some guys there that are going to hit us up to take a group picture, which we're going to agree to. And so they get us all lined up. The guy climbs the telephone pole, hangs off the pole, and he takes a couple of pictures. And then 2 or 3 days later, he meets us at the same place, and it's like $10 for a group photo. It's a cool deal. Well, there was a kid there that had a camel, and he charges like, I don't know, $5, to get your picture taken on a camel. So a lot of people do that. And then this one woman started arguing with him. I said, well, the other place, it wasn't that expensive. And he goes, well, that's what I'm doing it. So she gets on the camel, pays him his $5, gets on the camel. Camel stands up, and and takes the picture. And then she goes, okay, I want to get down now. He goes, well, that'll be $5 too. So he gets you for $10, but you know what I mean? It's $5. Boy, you want to get down? So I didn't see that. I heard that from the Brian. Oh, that was pretty good. See those guys on the camel kind of made me think of that. But anyway, it's a nice time. At this time, it's kind of breezy. It's a little bit cool. I didn't mind it being in short sleeves, honestly, because I'm used to weather here at home. But
it's dry there, huh?
Yeah, it's dry there, and it's we're going in the springtime, so I think it'll be a little warmer. And there I am. Hey, you know what that picture? That's called participant. But you can see I got my backpack on. I'm holding my camera, I guess. But I've got my map, my Bible, all that stuff, and so I'm just a total Bible geek when I go there. And then that's the road. Oh, that is the road to Jericho. If you were to go on a bus, you could go there. Hey, there you go. Or Wadi Kilt. And so, back to the old city. And there was a note there that the other thing you got to do when you take a picture of your notes is make sure you're focused.
Sky.
Yeah. But I could recognize it from when I was doing all my other stuff. And I think we ended up this day going to the Yad Vashem Holocaust Museum and some other places. Now, that gray dome there, that's the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay? And it's just another perspective as you walk around the city. And that's what I like to do, is try and learn the geography a little bit about all that stuff. And this is the garden areas that were excavated. And you go down in there.
The third most holy spot for Muslims.
Yeah. And the area down below, remember I told you the Temple Mount's one level, then you go down about 80 feet. And that's what this is now. This is the Jewish Archaeological Park. And so...
what's the significance of the Alaska Mosque?
The Al-Aqsa Mosque, what about it? The gray one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the significance?
To me, nothing. No.
Nothing.
It's the, I think, the third holiest site. There's Mecca's number one. I think either Al-Aqsa or Golden Dome is number 1 or 2. Then the other one, Golden Dome or Al-Aqsa, is number 3.
It's supposed to be the second house of prayer constructed after the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca.
So it's Muslim.
Yeah, it's all Muslim.
It's all.
But they all bow toward
Mecca.
Mecca.
Yeah. That's why one day I walked by Rob Yardley at Calvary Costa Mesa, and he was kneeling down, picking up trash off the floor. And so I walked by him, and I threw a piece of, like a dirty Kleenex, in front of him to the left so he could see it, and just stood there waiting to see. And he turned around, and I just smiled at him so he knew I had him. And but I said, dude, because he was kneeling down doing something. I go, Mecca's the other way.
I was just reading that the Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad was transported from the sacred mosque in Mecca to the Al-Aqsa during the night journey, and then went on to heaven from there.
Yeah, because he stepped on the rock, and then boing. Boing, the lie detector. So anyway, this is the archaeological dig in the park. You can walk all through it.
Wow, that's great.
And it's really neat because when Grayson went to the first time, all this is roped off, fenced off. You couldn't go down here at all.
When
And
was
so,
that built? And who built it?
The walls that you're seeing were built by the Muslims around 700 AD
Let's get a picture.
and rebuilt, if you will.
On top of what? Do we have any idea?
They think on top of the retaining wall of the Temple Mount. Like when you see the western wall, that's the original wall. That's part of the retaining wall. And so they just built up parts of it, kind of continued around the corner and that kind of thing. They followed the Temple Mount walls, if you will, to do it. But that's
Try
for
to
sure.
destroy them and build over them.
Yeah. And so we walk through this part. Now, there's the corner of the Temple Mount, and we'll go down there in a minute and show you that. But you see the wall that's kind of coming off the wall?
Mm-hmm.
And you see the walkway up that leads up to the Temple Mount. That's the Arab controlled, PLO controls that. Or not, it's not the PLO actually outright, it's the WAQUF, the Waqf. And it's the Jordanian, Palestinian something. The Jews basically give control to them of that area, even though they go in and take it over now and they just show them who's top dog.
Palestinian Authority.
But the point is, that wall right there, that's the western wall is on the other side of that. So the next thing you see is the court of the women, and then beyond that the court of the men, and the rabbi tunnel. Okay? So down below that is where I think we're headed next in this picture.
Is that about 80 feet tall, you think?
When you get down to the bottom part of it, I think you'll see that it's like give or take 80 feet. Here we are. This corner is the corner of the retaining wall. To where these people are standing, and in front of them is a walkway, the original pavement. Underneath that, there's a tunnel system for sewers and that kind of thing. And then on the ground over here, when we get to another picture, you're going to see this cornerstone. See how that dipped in? That's from stones falling off the top of the temple and hitting, falling, these big stones were falling 110, 120 feet and hitting that walkway.
You mean 40-ton stones?
Yeah, big stones. And then they had a series of arches and bridges, Wilson's Arch, that were from the common areas. So you didn't have to walk down low. It was a bridge, if you will, that took you up the Temple Mount. And so, and it had aqueduct that took water into it, and all kinds of cool stuff. And so, they had stables down here, and they had food and grain storage, and all kinds of stuff that was going to be dedicated to the temple. And so, we're going to walk all through that. Anyway, it's kind of cool how they cleared it all away. And then hopefully I'm going to get to it here in a minute. But you can see the height that you're talking about. I mean, you look straight up, and the engineering of it. The tour guide kind of explained it, but it looks like if it was straight up and down, it would look like it was coming out. So they built it back like an inch or a quarter inch per 10 feet or something like that, so that it actually would look straight when you looked at it. And so, because it looks pretty straight up and down to me, but they have all kinds of engineering stuff in there that I didn't quite get.
That was from where?
And here, you can see that wall. The top of the wall is the level of the western wall on the other side. Were you saying one?
That's because of the Lord telling Moses how to build.
Yeah.
Seriously, about the tiers in the temple.
Oh, the Jews went to Egypt to learn how to build big things, and they said they got it dialed in.
Not by choice.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the training I go through isn't by choice either. Okay, here's the cornerstone for the temple. There it is. And so you can see it right in front. And it's a big, kind of L-shaped stone. It's flat on one side and curved on the back. And that was one of the capstones to the building. I don't know if I've got a better angle. Keep looking. Oh, that's looking up.
And you say they found it and then it was destroyed, but they had reconstructed it?
No, they found it and then they removed it to put it in a museum so it wouldn't get messed up.
But they reconstructed it.
What you saw is a replica. Yeah, what you saw is a replica. And so
they found it where it had been knocked off?
Yeah, where you see it on the ground in the other picture, that's where they found it. They just put it back in the same spot. And so that's the original pavement. You can see it's caved in because underneath there's a subterranean tunnel that's the sewer that took everything out to the Valley of Hinnom Valley, or Gehenna. Sorry, Gehenna. Hinnom Valley is a valley of cheese. Tyropian Valley.
Of cheese?
Yeah, that's what Tyropian Valley means. It's cheese valley. Lots of goats there, I guess. I don't know. Cheesy.
I thought Hinnom was where they burnt everything.
No, that's Gehenna. Well, the Hinnom Valley. Well, there's the Tyropian Valley, the Hinnom Valley, which is Valley of Gehenna. Then there's the Kidron Valley.
Yeah.
So 3 valleys.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just kind of fun to walk through all these things, but this is the original pavement, and obviously it's messed up because all the rocks fell on it, and they took them away. But, and storage areas, and then you can see where Arabs and people have just kind of built over the top of stuff. You know, that's, you can't really put a shovel anywhere without. And you couldn't see these walls right here would extend across. Then there would be like a bridge on top of that would lead from the old city or the main city of Jerusalem up to the Temple Mount. Going to the temple itself was a big deal.
Is that an excavating machine on the side there?
Probably. Oh no, that's a light.
Oh,
Right
okay.
there. Yeah, that's a light.
Looked like a big old.
Nah, I tell you what. We're tired at the end of the day. We go home, eat dinner, hit the sack for the most part. But on the drive home, sometimes you drive around the city, and it's so pretty because they take advantage. They light everything up. They light up the rocks and stones in different colors, and it's just it's beautiful. They've made it really, really nice. Not just the same stone again. We're just kind of talking about it. Anyway, to me, it's fascinating to see this stuff. But look at how the stones are carved. Those are original stones, by the way. That's what, that's original work. Because what happened was they got buried. So when they got down to the point, they weren't going to dig down to destroy those stones. They just, as it got covered up, they left it alone. So you come back years later, and you see these stones, and they're fitted together so precisely.
Do you know of any movies or documentaries that have, via 3-dimension, camera work and stuff like that, have rebuilt Jerusalem with the, you know what I mean, with the way that, like you're saying, look at these walls came out and there was an archway with the thing on top.
Yeah.
Have they done that 3-dimensionally so you
Yes.
could see that?
Yes. We're going to go there. It's
You
called
mean
the
for
Israel
sets?
Museum. Huh?
Okay.
For set, you mean?
No, there's 2 things. Number one, we're going to go to this place called the Israel Museum. And in there, they've got a 2-scale model of the city of Jerusalem during the times of Jesus. And they built the temple, they built all the city, all the stuff, and they reconstructed it. And you can walk around it. You're only supposed to spend half an hour there. And I spent the whole time, just like amazed, and click, 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 and I took like a whole bunch of pictures. You'd be very bored when you see them.
Is it like smaller or?
Yeah, it's not. The whole model would be twice as big as this house. Like stretch it out.
Oh wow.
But
You
they
can't
did-
walk in it. I mean,
They did that in the Holy Lands Park.
It's bigger
It
than I
was
was expecting.
amazing.
Florida.
That's good size.
yeah, but I mean, you can walk around it. You can't walk in it, but I mean, it's got a little guardrail where you can see the whole thing, and so you can see. They had a hippodrome. They had a coliseum. They had the temple and all that kind of stuff. They had Herod's palace. They had Pilate's palace. So you could see the palace of Caiaphas and Annas. All these different things, and so it's really kind of cool. I wish we'd gone there first to get the under the land a little bit, and then go take the tour of Israel. But the way it works out, timing wise, we ended up there like 3rd or 4th day.
How do you spell the name of that museum?
Israel Museum.
Oh, just Israel.
Yeah.
And
And
this is,
I've got everywhere I went, I've got brochures for all the locations, and so I'll bust those out and kind of look at them sometime if you want to. But you don't really know why you're there so much. But anyway, walk around the outside again, and there you go, southern wall.
Big rocks, lots of money.
Big rocks, lots of money. So you can see where it goes: big rocks, then little rocks. And you can
Little
see that
rocks.
the Al-Aqsa Mosque is over the top. Okay. Remember when you were looking at the Gold Dome of the Rock, and from the Mount of Olives, and there's a eastern wall, eastern facing wall, makes a corner. We're on the corner part. Okay. And so you can walk on down there and just look at cool stuff. And that'll be part of the Ramparts walk. Yeah. I am dying to do the Ramparts walk.
How long of a walk is the Ramparts? I mean, how much time are we gonna spend up there? Is it gonna be?
I don't know for sure. I was actually looking at a bunch of stuff on the internet about that a couple days ago because I've never done it. And there's two parts of it because they don't. You do one part, get around, you got to go around and do it, and then you climb up some more stairs and do the other part. And so they're talking about 3 miles altogether. You know,
So we're up there for a little while.
A little while.
Oh, that's a couple hours.
Yeah, I could see a couple hours because you're going to stop and look at stuff and see things. Because that's perfect bird's eye view to see a lot of things. And so, the balances in this whole thing, I mean, honestly, we could probably spend 5 hours doing that. You stop at every slide, look at pictures, talk about it. But I got a feeling the tour guide's going to be ushering us along because the more time we spend on this, the less time we're going to have for the next thing and the next thing. And so, you got to go back more than once. All there is to it. I found that to be very true. So you get to the ritual baths and the mikvahs and all that stuff, and now you can look over here and look. It's the slope up the Mount of Olives now. Look in the other direction, where we were standing earlier, or would have been standing earlier. And so this is Solomon's Steps. We're going to do a Bible study there, but these are the steps leading up to Solomon's colonnade and all that kind of stuff. And so these are the steps that Jesus would have sat on with his disciples. Taught them. Then that's upper part of the Muslim. They've taken over the Temple Mount stuff. But you can see the gateways there that led into it originally. And covered over.
Those used to be open and they just put them in.
At some point, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
cool.
Are we going to the baptism location that Calvary Chapel built?
Yeah. You know, I'm honestly gonna the day that we do that, I'm gonna just ask the group, do you want to go there or not? Because if we go there, if people want to get baptized, we'll go there. I guess it's, you know, you can say you got baptized in Israel, but as far as the location goes, I was kind of a little dismayed at how many people were there, how many people and they have all these like 25 different like little niches where different church groups can kind of gather and stuff. There's one group that when we were there, they brought a sound system, they brought speakers and amps and all kinds of stuff, and you couldn't hear yourself talk or think. You know, we were like 50 yards away. And I mean, maybe that was just, it was a big church, obviously, a big Spanish church from Florida or something like that. There's another place I think would be a better place to get baptized, honestly. It's a place called Sockney, where Grace and I got baptized. And it's a nicer place. You can actually jump off rocks into the water and have fun.
The water's like crystal, isn't it?
And, yeah, and little fish will come up and suck on your toes. And get your toes cleaned. But the baptismal place, you know, it's on the Jordan River and there's different things. And so, I mean, there's significance to it. But if you don't really intend to get baptized, you could almost like take a look and split. So yeah, we could. We went to that place because some people really wanted to get baptized there versus getting baptized at Sockney. The Jordan River, because it takes so much water out of it, it's not really that nice a river. You know, in some places it's actually kind of swampy. Yeah.
Why did you guys pick Sockney?
Because our tour guide said that was a cool place to go to.
Okay.
And again, no particular biblical relevance,
No.
but it was a good place to do baptism and that kind of thing.
They have hot springs, the water's mineral water, it's clean. It's a national park.
Yeah.
National park's pretty.
Is that built into our tour already?
Sockney?
Yes. But it's also one of those days that's kind of cram-packed full, so it's like you pick one or the other kind of thing, or different thing.
Do you have pictures of Sockney?
No, not on this.
At the house we do. We got some good ones.
Yeah, at the house we do. Got Pastor Chuck jumping off the cliff, doing a cannonball, and stuff like that. But and again, these are the ritual baths, the mikvahs, and Here, I'll back that up so you can see the picture. That's what they do. You walk down one way, and you bathe for a moment, then you walk up the other way. You don't walk in the same way you came, because you don't want to be defiled by it.
It's a ritual.
It's a ritual bath.
It's very formal.
Yeah. But you see, there's hundreds of these things all around that area, so that when they went up into the temple courtyard, they were clean, as much as they could be. So that was their attempt. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, there's just a bunch of them right in a little shot.
This is a prep area for Levites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what it would have looked like, in the day.
Where were Where were those baths?
They're all around.
I mean, on that little picture, that little drawing you
It
had.
didn't happen.
Okay.
Where would they have been?
It would have been to the left of the picture.
Oh, nice. Down near the corner.
Yeah. Anyway, lots of photo ops, different type of ritual bath. Same basic scenario though. And I just like looking at the carving. And you see stars of David here and there. This is a kind of a weird room. Trying to get a picture of this 3D look of the temple the way it would look then. But then we're back to Kotel. Inside the area there. You go in that arched tunnel, go back, and there's hundreds of guys back in there that are praying, that are reading their Torahs and studying and stuff. And you can see a pretty big, and that's actually in the tunnel I was describing to you. The woodwork on some of these bookcases is just like insane. And, but that's what it looks like back in there. And it used to be way different. It used to be actually a lot dirtier and not nearly as nice.
That's Hebrew, not Catholic.
Correct. It's all Hebrew.
One last change.
But it's kind of cool just to walk in and look around, and all the books, by the way, are in Hebrew. So
What is the woodwork around? What's it about?
those are bookcases.
Oh.
Basically.
Oh, so that's for study.
Yeah. It's all set up for study. Then what's that? The next place here is called Belvedere, or Panoramic View of the City, and it's it's pretty close to St. Peter's Galantru, and it's Caiaphas's palace, where Peter denied Jesus, and so they've excavated that, and then there's his house next door. But you get out on this one.
Is that hazy or smoggy?
That's hazy, or just
Smoggy.
It's not smoggy.
Okay.
It wasn't. I don't know. It's winter. But down to the right, I'm not sure if I can know the picture of it.
Boy, the hills are a lot of hills.
Yeah. Well, Jerusalem was built on 7 hills. And I don't know if I know them all right now, but
Can you see the distinction?
not really.
From
Not
any
anymore.
From any place?
But Mount Zion, Mount of Olives. I can't even go right now, but
What's
anyway.
this? Solomon? What's the one where Solomon did this?
Well, on the left you see the Golden Dome, and you see the corner of the Temple Mount. If you pan right, and I think I had one of these just to back. That's still the Mount of Olives there, kind of more or less ahead. But then to the right, this is the Mount of Destruction.
That's what I was thinking.
This is the place where Solomon built temples for his pagan wives, and where he initiated pagan worship, during the end of his reign. And it's also the compound to the right with the antenna sticking out of it. That's also the headquarters for the United Nations.
Down below?
Yeah. And so be like right up in here, kind of see the antennas and all that stuff.
Doesn't it say somewhere in Ecclesiastes where Solomon saw that he had done wrong, So,
Yeah, towards the end of Ecclesiastes, basically, when he said it's all vanity, this is the thing. You know, worshiping a big God.
yeah,
I think he was saved at the end,
I'm hoping that
but
they will.
barely.
Like he the body.
So,
But look at the density of the housing. You can't see it real good. See the Israeli flag?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then over here in this direction, like over here. Remember David's palace?
Mm-hmm.
That's just down kind of below there. And then look at all the houses. They're all in this area and all over here.
That's intermixed.
Yeah, that's all Arab housing.
that's a nice flag right there.
All Arabs and Palestinians. But imagine, I think I'm going to take a bath on my roof today. I wonder if anybody's looking.
Yeah, right.
Maybe the king.
You get the picture? Bathsheba wasn't completely innocent in all this whole thing.
Innocent.
Anyway, so you see this kind of panoramic view. You can see a bunch of cool stuff. And again, you get a perspective on the Temple Mount from a different direction. And I thought I had a place, but I guess not. Down below and to the right, and I may have another picture, but there's the Potter's Field, where Judas Iscariot committed suicide and was thrown to. Anyway, that's right by there too. They built a monastery on top of that, and you can kind of see it. And then this is St. Peter's
Sure,
Cathedral.
it's not a Catholic church.
Yeah. This is one of the last things that we'll see from this day, I think. Yeah, just about. So we're almost done with so this is all happening one day, by the way, so we're going to see a lot of stuff in one day.
What a neat fresco or whatever.
Does
Yeah.
stand for Psalm 121?
What's that? Yeah. This is a church built over the top of Caiaphas' house. And you get in there, and it's all, Catholicized and stuff. But when they get to the actual excavation point, there's a cistern, a pit at the very bottom of it. We're going to go down there and do a Bible study in Psalm 118. But potentially, Jesus could have been held prisoner there. We know for the most part he was questioned, he was beaten, he was, all these different things that happened to him. But they had to kind of put him in a quote-unquote holding cell in between some of the events. And if so, we're going to walk into some of these areas. But it's also very similar to the pit that the prophet Jeremiah was lowered into. Remember, he was lowered in, he was basically left to rot. Then they pulled him out, kind of like before he died and everything. So it's a very similar scenario, even though it's not the same one probably. We'll do kind of a Bible study down there. But depiction of them taking Jesus basically to trial there at Caiaphas' house. And the sacred dungeon, the sacred pit.
The Mount of Corruption.
Yeah,
With Solomon's.
yeah. It's also called the Mount of Destruction, but it's the same thing.
Why the lit area? On that?
Because they're giving it lighting to show places where they had rings in the rocks where they attached people to there. They didn't have jail cells per se. They just chained you to the wall. And the lighting is to navigate to because it's dark down there. It's all carved out of stone. And then you get outside and here's a statue, the rooster on top crowing. A couple different girls and a soldier all talking to Peter who's denying him at every turn. And so another angle, the same thing. These are the steps that Jesus would have gone up and down from the upper room on the way down to the Garden of Gethsemane. And I think I'll back out a little bit, but the space that you see here is the distance between Caiaphas' house and Annas' house. Caiaphas was the high priest that was recognized by the Jews, Annas was the high priest that was son-in-law to Caiaphas, but he was appointed by the Romans because they didn't like Caiaphas. But the Jews wouldn't, and neither would Annas. He didn't decree anything. Caiaphas would make the decisions. He'd tell Annas, and Annas would tell the Romans, here's what I decided. So, but that's what it looks like, you know, a little bit bigger view. It used to be you could run up and down those things, but they've since kind of fenced it off. And then we get back into the old city, walking in the Zion Gate. And we drive from where we were in a bus, and we park near here, and we walk in. So, pretty cool. Get to the Jewish quarter. This is Hezekiah's wall. The wall that Hezekiah built around the city. And so, or the remnants of it. And so they got, you know,
Small stones, of course.
and they built right on top of it. I mean, to the Jews, all this archaeology, I mean, it's like, you know, when they get a bulldozer in or a backhoe or they dig stuff, they find stuff, they got to stop and redo it. So the most part, they just start pouring concrete and call it good. But anyway, we're almost done, sweetheart. The room of the Last Supper. Remember the Domitian Church in the distance in that one picture I showed you, the big tall church. We're on the Mount of Olives, looking out past the Jewish synagogue and all that stuff. That leads us over here to the room for the Last Supper. And we're going to walk past the Domitian Church. And I mean, just these walls and stuff are just killer. And that's David playing the harp, because we're pretty close to David's palace, or David's tower. So again, that's the Domitian Church. But you get inside, this is the room that they call, quote unquote, the upper room. It's actually built where it was probably pretty close to where it was, and it was probably this is a Crusader building, so that's why they have the tall arches, all that kind of stuff. A Jewish building wouldn't have had all that, but the room is more or less in the place where they think the upper room really was, and so they just built a room there back in 316 AD or whenever they did. You know, this is the place. So
looks like some are just rock and some are plaster.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's plaster.
Yeah.
Repaired.
They were taken over by the Muslims at some point and repurposed. So that sometimes they're replastered and all kinds of stuff. But then you get on top of that building. Remember I told you you'd be on top by that one dome, looking down at tombs and stuff. Trying to think. Okay, that's the great dome I pointed out to you guys. Remember, I said when we're on top at the upper room, we'll be by that. You'll be on top of that where that great dome is, looking out over the city. And so there it is, and it's a building underneath those stones. So they suspended them on those high arches and all that kind of stuff, and built on the top of it. And so it's.
And you said there's earthquakes a lot over there.
Yeah.
I just think about how that stuff stands.
What is
Yeah, I don't know.
the
Yeah.
composition of the
weight.
stone?
Huh?
What's the composition of the stone?
I don't know.
Rock.
Something really strong.
It's like limestone, I think. That's pretty easy to carve.
Looks like one.
But this is David's tomb. The tomb of the kings, all that kind of stuff.
For real?
Is it really?
Well, that's what they say. You know, I don't know. But it's identified today as David's tomb.
Is he actually in there though?
No.
Oh.
No. Need verification. There it is. But as you go in there, you know, they've got some rabbis and stuff that kind of hang out and watch everything. They've got scribes that are still writing. And so you can walk around.
What are they writing?
You know, I think they're copying scripture. They still have scribes to this day that hand write out the Jewish scriptures. And then they sell them or use them in different synagogues and stuff. And then we garden tomb. And again, we'll walk to that. That's a nice little trip down the road. They have, what's different than from the time that we were there, swear, is they had a bench up here where you could look over the wall and you can see, you know, Golgotha, the skull kind of carved into the side of the mountain. Well, they've since built up several kind of patio type areas that are covered, so multiple groups can see it at one time. And so they've really been developing the group. You can see in this picture, in the middle, you see two holes, and then down below kind of a nose. When I was there in 1999, it was much more distinguishable. This is an older picture. Going back in successive years, it's gotten less and less distinguishable. And, you know, if you go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was supposedly, you know, buried and all that stuff, and it's right next to Golgotha, that means that the whole Golgotha skull thing was all buried somehow, because you got to go down into it. It's a grotto. Here, they've got a garden, they've got a cistern, they've got all kinds of reasons why they think this is it. And, you know, for many years I really kind of bought into that. I've kind of come into the middle of things between those two sides now. One of the reasons why I've come into the middle of it is simply because of the erosion that's happened on this mountain, and we see the imprint or the image of a skull kind of disappearing. And I'm thinking, well, if I've seen that much in 20 years, what's happened over 2,000? You know, so I mean, to me that just, you know, the point is you get there, the tomb, whether it's this tomb or that tomb, they're empty, and it's the narrative that we're kind of looking at that kind of catches my eye. And so you see these different pictures of what it looked like, because now when you look at it today, there used to be an eye here and an eye there, and another something down lower, and you could distinguish the skull. Today you have to look at old pictures of the same site to kind of get the same.
Yeah, from your guys'
feeling.
pictures, I can see a big difference.
Yeah, and so it looks a lot different today than it did then. There's a cemetery up above over here, and then there's a Muslim, an Arab. And sometimes I say Muslim, and I almost use it interchangeably, but Arab is different than Muslim. There are Arabs that are Christians, there are Arabs that are Jews, and there are Arabs that are Muslims, so I got to kind of keep my terms right. But this is an Arab bus station down here, so it's real busy, noisy and stuff. and there's a road that kind of curves around. So there's a lot of erosion, and so because the first time I saw it, I was sold. You know, I saw that skull on the mountain, and there's no other place. And then over the years, I looked at a couple other things. And, well, this could be it, it might not be. So I don't bite too awfully hard. Down here is the main area. See, there's a cemetery up above still, so they built a wall over the top of it, and you can see all that. But this is down into the cistern that fed the garden. It was a rich man's tomb for sure, because it's just one tomb. There's a huge garden around it, so no one else is going to get buried there. And then they got a cistern that holds, like, I forget how many, 55,000 gallons of water or something like that. And so it's enough. And then they have all the channels and stuff that lead down into it, and they're still watering it to this day. You see a piece of white PVC that goes down. That a pump is pumping the water back up to water all the garden that you saw. And so they're still using the cistern. They have these little kind of chapel areas where you can kind of stop, but that's the actual tomb. There's a vent hole towards the top, because when they would put a body in there, they would lay it on a table. They would wrap it up in cloths and spices and stuff. They would leave it there, lying there for a year. In that year, the body would completely decompose. It would go back in. They would collect the bones, and they would put them in a little square, rectangular box called an ossuary. They would take that box, and they would take it to the back of the tomb, like in a cave area, and stack it up with the other ones so that you were, quote unquote, buried with your fathers. So what you see is there's a door to the left. There's part that broke away, so they rebuilt it, and then there's the window shaft. Then there's a channel in front of it, presumably where a large stone would have gone to seal the tomb up. You can see a different little perspective there. And
that's why the block, so that it would seal or roll easier.
Yeah. Yep. So and I didn't go in this time. I mean, I've been in it 3 or 4 times, but there was a big crowd waiting, so I didn't, haven't gone since I've been there so many times before. But
So even if Jesus wasn't buried there, he was still crucified on top of Golgotha, right?
Right.
So either way, that's where he died, right?
I think so, but you know, can't be.
Which is Moriah, right?
What's that?
Which is Moriah.
Yeah. This is Nebi Samuel. This is where the prophet Samuel lived, and the Crusaders built a fort. Then when the Muslims conquered them, they built a minaret, making it a mosque. And so you see different kinds of architecture there. And
That one looks like a lighthouse.
they all do.
Big.
But, and they're, and they're another quarry where they're digging out these big rocks.
Wow.
And then they had a moat. So they, dual purpose, they're digging out rocks and they're creating a moat in the process. And so they use the rocks for other architecture and stuff. And you see the quarry work going on there. They lifted these big old rocks out of there, you know. And our day, it's like, oh, they did a bunch of cranes and stuff, but they didn't have that, so they still got it done. In the distance over there, that's Jerusalem. So you would come over this mountain, like from the Mediterranean, and you hit this mountain, and you see the smoke coming up, and hey, we call it the Mount of Hope, because you had hope now that you're closer to Jerusalem. And so, I like it. Samuel's one of my favorite Bible characters. He's the man that reintroduced the Word of God to Israel. And God used him in a mighty way. So, but you can see it's pretty green, pretty nice. And Valley Sora. I'm going to stop there. It's almost 4:30, so I think we've. But all this is a day, so we're going to be cranking along when it comes. And so what we'll do is, I don't know if this is boring to you guys or not, but
I love it.
we'll next week we'll get together and we'll just kind of pick it up from here and keep going through the next day. And when we get through the rest of the tour, then we'll go back and hear some of the teachings of Pastor Chuck at the various sites and R.A. Ben David. And so, anybody have any questions? John?
How close are you to getting the Word document for
I'm
all
closer. I worked on it this week.
all the scriptures?
Yeah, I'm not that far away, but it takes time to do that. And I did work on it for a little while yesterday and a little while the day before, but with my dad being out and different things happening, I just didn't finish it. So I am trying to get that done and get it in your hands because you'll have 3 or 4 months to kind of go over that stuff before we go. So hopefully this next week I can kind of knock it out. So, haven't forgotten about it. Just I'll get it all done. Mark,
I was just counting down the months.
Oh,
3
okay.
months.
Yeah, we're getting there. So I'm excited.
I'm excited. I think this history and seeing all that stuff combined with prophecy and waiting for our Lord's return, I mean, I'm thankful enough that we're going to be able to go.
I haven't been through these pictures, really. I mean, I think I brought them one night, when I first got back from Israel, and I played them until everybody fell asleep, and then I stopped. But I haven't previewed this stuff that you need to get ready for today. And for me, just to be able to remember the names of the places, because when you've been there and gone through it a few times, you start remembering stuff, you start recognizing things. And that's where I want to be. That's where I want you guys to be a little bit, so when we get there, you're not overwhelmed with the sights, that you can still kind of absorb.
I don't remember whether you said Ari was a Christian or
R.A. is a Christian.
R.A. is a Christian.
His family was one of the first Messianic Jewish
His
families.
daughter maybe or a guy?
No, she will not be.
Oh.
We're getting a guy that I don't know, that I've never met before. R.A. He's like the premier guide, and he doesn't just do regular groups like us anymore. Yeah, he only does pastor teaching tours.
But he's got a group that he has organized? Is that?
Yeah, he takes smaller groups of 12 or 18 pastors, and sometimes their wives, and then he gets us out hiking and moving and doing stuff differently. We don't cover the typical tourist, first time Israel visitor kind of stuff. I would love to take us on that trip. I mean, I think one or two of these to get your feet wet, get your mind in that place and knowing what it's about. Then you go on to other places that are beyond that, you know, and learn more about different places. But even his daughter, she was our tour guide on my last tour. She's very, very popular and booked up way ahead of time. And so it's a lot of it's by relationship, and I don't have any relationship with, you know, except for Brian Blank. You know, I'm his friend, and so he would introduce me to all the vendors, all the different people. Hey, Pastor Mike's coming back, you know, and in 2019, oh, Pastor Mike, you know, my friend, you know, bring your people. And so I don't really have any real relationship. I've got some understanding where we're going to go, but I'll be, you know, it's the first time for me. I mean, it's one thing to go to Israel. It's something else to lead a group.
So we may not have a Christian guide.
We're not going to have a Christian guide.
He's
Okay,
giving
well,
Kyle's tour
I have
guide.
heard that other people that have been to Israel that have had those guides, you get an interesting perspective from them,
Yeah.
historically especially.
Well, they're all strong on history and geography and all the basic things. And they can all actually teach pretty good Bible studies because I'm amazed at how much Bible they know that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it actually puts us to shame. It put me to shame. Our first tour guide knew the Bible way better than I did. And he was a non-believer. And he was a brand new tour guide.
Wow.
And I mean, it was kind of, I mean, I really kind of felt pathetic. But when it comes to actual Bible teaching, I'll be doing that. We're going to rely on him for the history, for the geography, for the archaeology, all that kind of stuff. And if he does get into the area where he starts kind of, you know, talk about the Bible or what like that, and you know, we'll just kind of take that with a grain of salt, like any other non-believer, quote unquote, teaching the Bible. You know, like we talked about
It's
this
a
morning.
society that took teaching and learning to heart.
Yeah, it's amazing how people can be all around the Bible so much, and it won't affect their lives that way. So, anybody else have any particular questions, or do you guys want to meet again like this earlier next time?
I like it.
I like it because it gets kind of late the other way.
Yeah. Well, let me just look at the calendar real
I'll
fast.
go with whatever's easiest for
Except we were
Mom
had
and
a week.
Deb, actually, so.
Okay,
We couldn't do that.
No.
let's do this. Next Sunday is the 23rd, which is like the day before.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do it then. And I'm okay doing it on the 30th, if all you guys are. That's the day before New Year's Eve. Christmas is kind of a bigger deal. People are busier leading up to it, so I don't want to. We're just not. Just tell you flat out, we're not going to do it next Sunday. But I'll leave it to you guys. Do you want to meet again on the 30th, or do you want to put it off another week?
I'm good. 30th.
I'll be
Done?
coming back from the Ark.
Oh.
Man, what?
I know.
Let you have the microphone.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm just like, it.
Take notes and lots of pictures.
Yeah.
I will. You can watch it on his channel. Mike
Yeah.
McIntosh and Dave Rosales, they give a good little tour.
Really?
Tour
Yes.
of it,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'll
And
do that.
it's good. Yeah.
Well, Supers, are you guys okay with just the 30th, the following Sunday? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll do it after church like we did today? Sure? Okay, cool.
Uh-huh.
Yes. I vote yes.
All right.
I do that.
And what time is it? It's 4:30. We started at 1, so it's been 3.5 hours. So an hour of eating, 2.5 hours of pictures and talking. So, yeah. Well, thank you guys for being so patient with me and just letting me kind of roll
This
through this
was
stuff.
great.
Well, this is helpful because we can ask the questions and we don't have to ask them when we're there.
Well, you'll have other questions.
You'll think of a million questions.
Yeah.
I love that. I love pestering a tour guide. Oh, I got to earn his money. You know,
Nice guy.
When did they close Jordan?
it's not really closed.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
There was a thing in the news a couple of weeks ago where Israel leased a portion of land from them that they were farming on, and it was through a peace agreement, but that it had a time limit on it. The time came up, and typically the Jews are allowed to renegotiate that lease or whatever, you know. And Jordan just said no, because the king of Jordan is being pressured like you won't believe, because the majority of his country are Palestinian. And so for him to play a moderate role is a tightrope walk for him. But
He's doing a good job.
yeah, overall. Sadly, I think he's anti-Semitic, but he's more afraid of Israel than he hates Israel. So that works too. But,
He had his Abdullah had his chance, didn't he?
yeah. Let's pray, guys. Father, thank you for allowing us to kind of just go over these pictures and the sites and the different things. And we pray that you would prepare our minds and our hearts for this trip. That we would, kind of remember some of the geography and some of the sites. And that as we study it up, Lord, and seek after it, that when we get our feet on the ground, that we can just be in awe and in wonder of what an incredible God you are, and the great things that you've done, how you've preserved this nation of Israel. And they are a living testimony to your faithfulness. And so, strengthen us in our faith, Lord, and help us to hear your voice all the more clearly. Guide us all, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So we'll take a week break, and I'll see you on the 30th for the next time around.
In contrast, people destroyed Los Angeles, nobody know where anything was.